Us now from Washington, national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan. Jonathan, good to have you.
Jonathan, we've been talking a good bit about Rex Tillerson this morning. You actually reported this weekend that he finds himself conspicuously short on allies. Tell us about it.
It's one of the most challenging exercises to do at the moment journalistically, is to find someone in Washington who will enthusiastically endorse Rex Tillerson. We reported a few weeks ago about the president saying privately that Rex just doesn't get it. He's totally establishment in his thinking, been trashing Rex to various aides. But after that, I sort of tried to prove the counterfactual, talk to people on the Hill, people inside the State Department, and also inside the White House. And it is genuinely difficult to find people to defend him. I think part of that...
Why is that? Why don't people on the Hill like him?
Well, there's two reasons, and a former Bush official summed it up best. Rex's natural constituency, Rex Tillerson's natural constituency, would be moderates who see him and Mattis as a restraining influence on Donald Trump, exactly as David Ignatius pointed out. They do work very well together. However, because of what he's done managerially at the State Department, which upsets a lot of people on the left, he's lost them for those reasons. And he's never had an ideological base on the right because he hasn't been forward-leaning on democracy promotion, spreading values. He's not hawkish on Russia. So all these things that conservative Republicans are used to seeing in a top diplomat, they don't get from Rex Tillerson. So, and then the other constituency, of course, is the media and the public image, and he just has completely ignored and neglected that. He's now making some belated attempts to sort of talk to some people, but it might be too late.
David Ignatius wants you to ask Jonathan a question about his reporting, but first, talk about really just how he's rowing, has had to row against the tide from the very beginning. Because his job was to do what the president wanted and what everybody around the president wanted their Secretary of State to do, and that is to basically put state on a starvation diet. They didn't trust state any more than they trusted the intel communities even before they got into the White House.
I think you put your finger on it, that this is an insurgent president. He represented a base that regarded with the State Department with deep suspicion. Rex Tillerson comes to Washington from Texas, from a corporation that has regarded the State Department as a nuisance, an obstacle to doing what ExxonMobil wants. So I think the situation was ripe for exactly what we've seen, which is a Secretary of State who doesn't want any of the usual Washington treats. He could care less what people in the Washington scene think about him. He doesn't want to make speeches when he's gone. He doesn't want to write a memoir. I wrote about him recently that his view of this job is basically the country music song, take this job and shove it. And the question I have, Jonathan, is how long is the White House going to put up with such a diffident Secretary of State? I hear many people, as you do, saying that Rex just isn't getting it right, is missing the moment. How long do you think this can last?
I think ultimately that obviously comes down to the president, and so it's unknowable. But find me somebody, please. I'd love to meet them. Find me someone in the White House who is an enthusiastic endorser of Rex Tillerson. I would love to know who they are. And that just seems to me an unsustainable position. I cannot find that person.
Well, Jonathan, when you do, please come back to Morning Joe.
I will. I'll find it. Let me know. Let me know. I'd love to talk to them. I'd love to talk to them.
He brings up a good point.
I'm not being glib. I'm being sincere.
I know you're upset about this. You're not being glib. No. You know, we're going to put a 1-800 number on the bottom of the screen, and everybody please call in. You can reach out to Jonathan or us at
I don't think he took the oath.
And yeah, we will if we can find somebody.
He's very upset about this.
Somebody to find.
No, it's real.
No, you know,
it's a real question.
The thing is, Jonathan, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories, and you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.